Hello there, kia ora. Napier City Council is a perfect example of an area that showcases the subjective nature of what a need to have is versus a nice to have that gets vilified in the race to win votes in every race in every local body election. Years of artificially depressed rates has led to a need to upgrade facilities and infrastructure, coupled with changes to water infrastructure when the government cancelled three waters without a backup plan, putting costs back onto councils, and the ever increasing costs of essential materials for continued infrastructure maintenance, and the increased costs of ongoing service provision, like power costs or wage bills. And they also need to build an essential resilience for an area that's heavily impacted by some of our most extreme weather events from the past few years. And nothing exemplifies this more than the library issue. Libraries are seen by the public as a core service, but in 2017, the Napier Library on Station Street was closed because of the building's earthquake safety rating. If there's any city in the North Island that knows the risks of an unsafe building in an earthquake, it's Napier. A new library was planned and is due to open in mid 2027, and an interim library was opened nearby, which was meant to operate until a few months before the new one opened. But in an effort to keep costs and rates down, the council proposed closing the interim library from July this year, making it only available for limited services, while another library would be open 7 days a week in Taradale. That one change was the difference between a 7.9 and an 8% rates increase, and the public feedback was overwhelming to keep it open. The council received the highest amount of feedback it had had on an issue in a decade, and 67% of respondents wanted it open. For most people, they could see how a library was seen as an essential core service that councils provide. It's even in the Local Government Act. But this is also an example of an issue that a rates cap would exacerbate. And for others, a minority, but their opinions are no less valid on this, they felt that the cost of keeping it running was enough to warrant it as no longer a need to have. And the difference in views on needs and wants is something that voters should check with candidates that are running all over the country, because that could mean the difference between keeping the library doors open or closed, and those differences can be red flags in themselves. So, quick disclaimer here, these are my red flags, which means that they're not going to be the same red flags for everyone, which is why you really do need to research all of your candidates and see which ones share your goals, your views, your vision for the future, and most importantly, none of that is going to matter if you don't vote in this year's local body election. With ballots being sent out this week, it's really important to make sure your details are up to date. And if you don't get your ballots this week, easy enough to check your details online and cast a special vote. Let's kick off with Ian Bradley. He's ACT, like it says on the ballot form that he's going to be there for ACT. So you'll get the usual lines about rate caps and a bureaucracy out of control. But he will be listed as ACT, so he'll be easy to spot. Then you've got Louise Burnside. She made headlines as the Napier anti-vaccine nurse who started some protests. Just last year, she was listed as the pharmacist for the anti-science disinformation group NZD-SOS, a group that says, take us seriously, but did you know that the Malaysia Air 370 plane that went missing, it was crashed on purpose because it contained the one fruit known to remove mRNA vaccines from the system. 4 years before COVID-19 was discovered in humans and 5 years before the vaccine itself was actually released. She's a passive member for a year now of pseudo-law group Challenging Councils. She's followed by Voices for Freedom connected candidates from around the country and the lowest vote getter from the recent Tamaki Makaurau by-election, Calvin Alp. On other platforms, she's pushed the Great Reset theory, claimed the COVID vaccine has nanites in it, and she's another one of those no three waters fan from the last election, and now wants to cap rates and leave LGNZ, which are just stock standard far-right dog whistles these days. And then rounding everything out, there's Terry Cornish. He's another of the cap rates believers, which, as I've explained before, limits any council's ability to do what it needs to. It ignores the fact that council costs increase at a rate higher than CPI, and then passes increased costs onto future councils, which drives up inflation as infrastructure costs increase, while forcing councils to limit services, like libraries, that they offer now. Napier has been hit hard by rates rises this term, the end result of years of we've got to keep rates low philosophies from successive councils. And finding a council that can find that balance is no easy task. But candidates that will make things worse in this regard, who want to limit the ability of the council to do what it has to do, whose ideas of needs are vastly different to the actual needs of voters, That's something that voters really should give careful consideration to before voting this year. Voting this year is done by postal ballot, with voting forms being sent out this week, actually. Napier City Council uses first past the post, so you need to tick the candidates that you like, and the future of Māori wards is on the ballot here. You can find more information about your local elections on your council website, or you can visit my website, paultheotherone.com/LG25 for a whole bunch of resources. Hey, thanks for checking out today's video. Make sure you like, share, subscribe so you get more updates as we go along. We deal with these guys for the rest of the year.